In many classrooms, phonics serves as the sole method by which students are taught the fundamentals of reading. The authors of Put Reading First define phonics as instruction that teaches children the relationship between the letters, graphemes of written language, and the individual sounds, phonemes, of spoken language. Critics of phonics often have a socio-psycho-linguistic perspective on the acquisition of reading skills and argue readers acquire a knowledge of graphophonics as they read. Graphophonics can be defined as knowledge which includes subconscious knowledge of phonology, orthography, and the relationships between phonology and orthography. Many people confuse phonics and graphophonics, but there are four distinguishing features that outline their differences. The first difference between phonics and graphophonics is that phonics refers to conscious knowledge, while graphophonics refers to subconscious knowledge. Knowledge of phonics is specifically taught, while knowledge of graphophonics is acquired. For example, students learn and can recite phonics rules such as, when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. Students then apply this rule as they read, and because of this rule, they know that B-O-A-T is pronounced boat. This is conscious knowledge, learned through direct, systematic instruction. This differs from graphophonics, which emphasizes the student's subconscious knowledge, which is acquired through reading, and thereby an innate ability to pronounce unfamiliar words correctly. The second difference between phonics and graphophonics is related to cueing systems used for decoding words. Those who take a word recognition perspective argue phonics is the most important cue, whereby a child uses phonics rules to decode words. Proponents of graphophonics contend there are actually three cueing systems that must be used in concert for effective and meaningful reading. The other two cues are syntax, which is the pattern by which sentences are organized grammatically, and semantics, which refers to the relationship between words and their meanings. There are two main issues with the word recognition perspective which relate to both reading and reading comprehension. When using phonics as the main cue for decoding, students often discover the numerous exceptions to phonics rules. Additionally, students using only phonics as a cue often have difficulty with reading comprehension, in some cases because they view the primary goal of reading to be word pronunciation, and thus are less able to pay attention or to remember the details or main point of the passage they are reading. By emphasizing the importance of syntax and semantics, students are afforded the tools to both decode more effectively and comprehend the meaning of their reading. The third difference between phonics and graphophonics is that phonics knowledge is considered a prerequisite for reading, while graphophonics knowledge is developed through reading. In the case of phonics, children are taught the rules of phonics to give them the skills necessary to decode words, and then these skills are reinforced by the use of special reading materials that include word patterns that have been previously learned. For example, such a decodable book might include the line, Dan, can, fan, nan, giving the reader the opportunity to practice the short A sound. In contrast, those who take a socio-psycho-linguistic view of reading advocate using engaging text as well as alphabet books to develop graphophonics knowledge. There are several considerations involved in choosing interesting text that will support reading. The final difference between phonics and graphophonics is the method used for assessing student progress. Phonics knowledge may be assessed independent of meaningful reading, while graphophonics knowledge may be assessed only during reading. Because phonics knowledge is conscious knowledge, students may complete easily constructed quizzes or worksheets, such as this one, to demonstrate their comprehension and mastery of phonics rules. Testing a student's graphophonics knowledge is more complicated and can be measured using what are referred to as determining lessons in order to ascertain a student's conscious knowledge versus their graphophonics knowledge. This process involves first testing a student's ability to decode words absent of context by having them complete a phonics worksheet, and is followed by testing a student's ability to pronounce many of the same words and word patterns by reading a text containing words from the phonics worksheet. The following is an abbreviated example of a determining lesson.
Okay, Jillian, we're going to work on words with EI vowel digraphs today. I'm going to have you read this list of words and figure out what sound the EI is making. These digraphs can make a few different sounds, so when you're reading these words, if you're not sure of how to pronounce a word, try all of the sounds and tell me if the digraph sound is E, A, or I.
Dear E, 8, A, height, I, weight,
A, receive, E, weird, A, neither, E, veen, E, slay, A.
As you can see, the student missed 3 of the 9 words.
Okay, next I want you to read this passage out loud. Each night I thought I saw a weird shape on the wall. I was only 2 years old and unaware of the fear and grief attached to the light. I believed that the thing would kill me if I told anyone about it. I stared at the ceiling full of disbelief. I felt deceived by my own imagination. I teased myself with the fear, knowing I couldn't seize it. Once I knew the source of the light that crept into my room each night, I could mischievously enjoy the fear.
This passage contains words with the EI vowel diagram Jillian had just worked to pronounce during the first portion of the lesson, and as you heard, she only mispronounced one of those words and corrected her mistake. The difference between her performance on the phonics exercise as compared to her performance on the reading exercise is an indication of her subconscious understanding of the EI sound spelling correspondences despite her low performance on the phonics exercise. Even though the terms phonics and graphophonics are often confused, they are components of very different views of reading. They differ in several ways. Phonics is conscious knowledge, but graphophonics is subconscious. Phonics is the primary source of information for identifying words, but graphophonics is one of 3 linguistic cueing systems. Phonics is seen as a prerequisite for reading, but graphophonics develops as students are read to and as they read. Finally, phonics can be tested independently of meaningful reading, but graphophonics can be tested only in the context of reading.
The end.